Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Aaron Hinde, the co-founder of LIFEAID. Now, LIFEAID is an incredible company. Your products can be found in thousands of gyms, hundreds of golf courses, and in fine retailers nationwide like Whole Foods, Sprouts, Kroger, the Vitamin Shop. And I'm pretty sure that FitAid has been the official recovery drink of the 2017 and 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games.
And 2019.
Wow, that is incredible. So, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It is truly a pleasure to be speaking with you.
Ben, thanks for having me.
So let's jump right in. What is your story?
My story. Oh man, my story's been a tumultuous one. I started really as an entrepreneur very early on. Always hustling, always had something going on. I was selling supplements out of my dorm room in college to all my buddies. Is kind of my first little side business. Really got serious as a solopreneur. I went to a chiropractic college, and so I was a sports chiropractor for 10 years in Santa Cruz, here in Santa Cruz, California. And got to deal with a lot of high-level athletes, and I think that's really what set me up for LIFEAID, is because these athletes are coming in with these high sugar, high caffeine, artificially sweetened, quote unquote sports and energy drinks, and I'd constantly tell them, man, you guys got to get off of that crap. You're gonna have adrenal fatigue. It's full of sugar, it's full of sodium. And they said, okay, well, what do you want us to start drinking? Because we drink water, but it gets boring. And there was really nothing to turn them to. At the time, energy drinks were on fire. They were cool, sexy, and hip. They worked. They jack you up. The coconut water was just hitting the scene, but it was very acquired taste. And kombucha was still very hippy-dippy, very acquired taste as well. So it was really out of ignorance and passion that I pushed the chips all in and started LIFEAID with my business partner, Orion.
Let's jump back into your early childhood.
Okay.
What did it smell like?
Very woodsy in nature and ocean. I grew up till I was 12 years old, about a block from our office here on the west side of Santa Cruz. So, this is back in the day when the parents just said, come home, after dark or before dark. And so I'd be cruising around with my friends on my bike along the ocean, right next to Natural Bridges State Beach. So, very much into the Santa Cruz beach life growing up. Doing lemonade stands on West Cliff Drive, selling lemonade for 10 cents a drink to all the hikers coming by. And, from there I moved up to the San Luis Valley, up into the Redwoods. So got my hands dirty. My dad bought 11 acres of raw land. So, I was working from a very early age out there, digging ditches, planting trees, putting in retaining walls, we worked a lot. So I didn't have a lot of free weekends.
Now, I believe you mentioned that you were selling lemonade on the side of the road. What inspired you to do that? Where'd that come from?
It's just part of that entrepreneurial gene. I mean, I think most entrepreneurs have a history in doing something when they were really young. I was a little out of the box on ways to make independent money. I had a paper route. I mowed lawns. I was a bagger at Safeway at 16. And, so that hustle mentality has always, been within me. And I think I got it from my dad. I mean, he's the same way. He's just he's a worker. He's not afraid of the work. He's not afraid to put himself out there and get shit done.
What was your relationship like with your parents growing up?
It was good. I'm the oldest of 7 kids, so big family. It was kind of an organized chaos. Of course, I only have 2 kids now, growing up with a family of 7. But, being the oldest, I think there's a lot of responsibility on you. I mean, I was babysitting my brothers and sisters when I was, 8 years old. I was babysitting a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn. I mean, that was just normal for us. And so I had more responsibility. As soon as I got my license, I'm driving my brothers and sisters around to school and to practices and sporting events and that type of thing. So I had more responsibility put on me early on growing up, and my parents were very supportive. My dad was, like I said, a really hard worker. My mom was, always had our back and So it was a great environment to grow up in. I'm very fortunate. I mean, we all have things that are a little jacked up, I'm sure, from our childhood, but I truly believe, as being a parent myself now, we're all doing as good as we possibly know how to do.
Being the oldest of 7, do you feel like that responsibility, being kind of the leader of your siblings, has had anything to do with your ability to succeed as an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I find a lot of entrepreneurs are firstborn. And yeah, that's just, it comes with that increased authority. It comes with that increased responsibility. Your parents tend to be a little more strict with the oldest, and so there's pluses and minuses. There's a lot of minuses you could say growing up. It was like, oh man, I had it the hardest. But when you have it the hardest, it sharpens the saw, as Stephen Covey would say, keeps your skill set tight, gives you more discipline, I think, being the oldest.
When you were saying how your dad was a really hard worker and your mom really always had your back, what did they do? Like, what were their, how did they spend their time, and why were those the things that you really remembered about them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was born, in a trailer park in Sacramento. I was born in a trailer park at home in a trailer. My dad was a roofer. So he was out swinging a hammer for $7 an hour in 110-degree Sacramento heat. Those are my first memories. And he was going to school, and he finally got his education and continued to improve the lives of him and his family. But I'll never forget the early days, the hard days. And one thing you realize growing, as you get older, there's perspective, but when you're a kid, you don't know. I mean, all you know is that you're in a loving family. You don't know that you're broke. My dad never, even though we qualified, he never took any government assistance, never took any housing assistance, never got us on food stamps, ever. It just wasn't part of his DNA. He refused to, So we made do. And, I know I grew up in a loving family, and they always did. He always did what he had to do to provide, and my mom was always there as a loving, nurturing mother. And after a few kids, she quit working and then was a full-time mom.
So, as the oldest of 7, how has your dynamic evolved with your siblings as y'all have gotten older?
That's funny. We're all pretty tight. I think we had a rough period coming into adulthood just because of, the dynamics. Like every sibling has a very different impression of growing up, and it has to do with just where they're at in the totem pole. And I think some of the, just our DNA and just their overall experience, even though we all grew up in the same household, we have a different experience. So, but now that we're all in our 30s and 40s, and we get along really well. We're pretty tight. And part of it is most of us have kids now, and so all those cousins play together. They're all very tight, and we remain a pretty tight-knit family.
So you mentioned how you've had an entrepreneurial spirit from a young age. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that came from? Like, why do you have that?
My dad had, he started a couple of his own businesses, so I saw that come to fruition and saw him be successful there. So part of that is genetic. Just like, I'm also a healer. I was a sports chiropractor for 10 years. Out of myself and 2 of my other siblings out of the 7 are also healers. And then I have 2 kids. One of them's a healer, one's not. So there's this DNA, this genetic component to being a healer and good with your hands and working on people. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship. I saw that as an example of my father, but I think there's something genetic in it. Mix that with being forced into sales, not forced, but my first internship from college was at Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter. I'll never forget, I showed up suit and tie first day of my internship. The guy, and I'm not making this up, literally hands me the phone book, and he says, start at A, start dialing for dollars. And he gave me a script. My name was Chris because he had multiple interns. And so Chris's could be both a man and a woman's name. And I dialed for dollars, and it was, getting over that hurdle and getting, used to cold calling people. It was really essential for where I'm at now. I mean, I was timid in a lot of ways when I was younger. I was a smaller kid. I got my license. I still have my license. For my 16th birthday, I got my license. I was 5'3", 101 pounds. I literally had to sit on a booster chair to pass my driving test. But I was only 135 when I graduated high school. Fortunately, I grew a little bit in college, but so I was never naturally super outgoing. But being put in that sales position really helped my development.
Before you got to college and before you started the supplements and went into this internship, what were some of the things that you enjoyed doing as a kid? Like, what did you like to spend your time doing in high school?
I love playing, basketball, sports, baseball, fishing, snow skiing, water skiing. I'm a decent water skier, and hiking around. I was pretty outdoorsy kid. I loved just doing stuff. And, my parents, we went on 2 vacations every year, one up to the snow and then, one to the lake. So I just kind of always look forward to lake and snow, and then, camping in between up in Big Sur, around the mountains here in Santa Cruz.
When you got to college, what was that transition like from being in this household with a ton of people running around, all family, to then kind of going out on your own in a university setting?
Well, I was still pretty small when I started, college, and here I'm on my own. So, and I grew up in a very strict household. I mean, my parents were very conservative in a lot of ways, more so with me than my youngest brother, number 7, Michael. Um, so it was a little awkward in year one. Fortunately, I found, I got a nice group of friends, and we stuck together throughout college. But then when I started really growing between my freshman and sophomore year, I went off the deep end a little bit, quite frankly. I went from one extreme to the other, and was having the typical college experience, and fortunately, somewhere in my mid-20s, I was able to mellow back out again.
What was the impetus, if you will, for starting that supplement business, and how did you do that?
In college? Well, I had some of my father's supply books from his business, so I knew who the manufacturers were, and I called them and just pretended to be a lot older and a lot more have a professional degree that I didn't quite have yet, and they set me up with wholesale accounts, and I started putting in orders for my friends and marking it up a little bit and selling it to them.
And did that business start to take off? Like, how big did you really take that?
Enough to cover my beer and pizza money on the weekends.
That's a pretty good deal. That's awesome. So then, were you thinking like, oh, I'm gonna build this massive supplement business. I'm gonna take over the world. I'm gonna build a huge empire. Or were you just thinking, there's just another way to make money?
There's another way to make money, but each of the experiences that I had, whether it's cold calling at Dean Witter, the supplement business, I had a private label eye drop business for stoners called Irie Eyes that I started. Everything has been necessary to get me to where I'm at. So I don't look at it as like, mistakes or good or bad. It was just part of the journey, those obstacles that were presented then and things that I learned about accurate thinking and maintaining proper alignment, and all the things that I bring to LIFEAID today are a result of the 4, 5, 6, 7 businesses that came and went over the years.
What were some of the biggest takeaways that you gathered or that you learned from starting those businesses?
Well, I'd say on the supplement business, I learned the importance of margins and markup and inventory control and basic stuff like that, wholesale costs versus retail. With Dean Witter, I learned the value of not being timid and shy and being able to put yourself out there in uncomfortable situations. The importance of having leads coming in the door and having a top of funnel. With Irie Eyes eye drops, I learned the value of accurate thinking. We got great distribution, about 2,000 head shops around the U.S., but the turns weren't what we were thinking they would be. People buy one bottle of eye drops and they last forever, or you're a stoner and you don't really care that your eyes are red. So there was some inaccurate thinking going on there. I had a company called Pacific Plastech where it was fencing material made of recycled plastic. We had the exclusive for California. Nobody had it. And now if you go around the farmland in California, everyone has it because it never breaks down. Cows can put their whole weight on it. It won't break. Like, it's amazing stuff. Well, we had the exclusive for California. I went to 3 different lumber yards and pitched the product and presented pricing, and they all said no. And I tucked tails and ran. Well, now I know, I tell our sales team, you keep in contact with a lead and continue to add value to that lead until they buy, die, or tell you to fuck off. Those are the only 3 possibilities. If I would have kept that with Pacific Plastech, I'd probably already be retired. So I think each like I said, each business has created learning experiences and opportunities. When I was a sports chiropractor for 10 years, that was a referral-based business, 31 new patients every month, all by referral. So I learned the value of creating a referral practice and, creating so much value for my patients, treating them so well how I'd want to be treated, that they felt obligated to refer all their friends and family to me. And so it just was a great practice and really a dream practice as far as being a solopreneur is concerned, which we take now, to LIFEAID at a much larger scale, dealing with 300,000, direct consumer customers instead of 30 new a month.
When you were a healer for 10 years, I believe you said, why did that attract you? Why was that such a big pull for you? And why did you continue doing that for 10 years? Like, what was the reasoning behind that?
Well, a few reasons. One, I was really good at it. The second reason is it provided a great income. And the third reason is I spent 9 years of my life after high school studying, so I figured I better, and I was deep in student loan debt. I was $260,000 in student loan debt, so I needed to work and get a return on my investment there to pay off, finally pay off the student loans, which took me quite a while.
So how did you move from that position into, what did you do after that?
Well, I had some side businesses going the whole time. That entrepreneurial streak's still within me. But in 2011, Orion and I, who we met in the CrossFit gym, he was a certified financial planner in town. I was obviously the chiro. We started working out together. We found out our daughters were not only in the same school, but in the same class and best friends in kindergarten. Then our wives finally met at a school fundraiser and they hit it off. So, we just started spitballing ideas after a few glasses of wine, and, this one stuck, and I'd have all kinds of ideas constantly. And it was always, when I wake up the next morning, if my wife said, "Hey, remember what you were talking about last night? You should pursue that." Like, I wait for that, because most of it's probably BS that I'm saying. And she said, "Hey, that idea you guys were talking about, that sounds like a good one." So we decided to move forward with it. It was actually coming back to the supplement business. Originally the concept was a supplement line called Party Pills to create supplements for people that are out partying. So instead of buying full bottles of B complex and milk thistle and 5-HTP and vitamin D, just have them all prepackaged in a little package you could take buy at a convenience store. And so we were going down that route, but then we decided, well, if supplements pill form were the way to go. Then this is before your time, but no-dose, which used to be the precursor to Red Bull, when no-dose was this pill you'd take. It's basically just ephedra and stimulants, right? And jack you up, but that's what you'd take in college to help study or stay up. And but then, they went by the wayside, and then this energy drink craze started with Red Bull. And so we thought, well, we should take these healthy supplements and put them in a drink form. And that's where LifeAid was born. It started with our concept of Party Aid. And over one night, we registered 80 domain names on Orion's birthday in January, including boneraid.com. We got for $12. So whoever said all the good domains were already taken was mistaken. But we registered 80 domains. We said, well, choose. If we're going to do Party Aid, we golf once a week together, let's do Golf Aid. We go to the CrossFit gym, let's do Fit Aid. And we kept going and going and going and going. And yeah, we spent whatever it was, about $900 that night, but we secured all the domains for the business to make it what it is today.
So once you registered those domains and you had the idea, what actionable steps did you take in order to grow it into the incredible business that it is today?
Yeah. So we launched our 3 products way too close together: Golf Aid, Fit Aid, and Party Aid. They all had different websites. They still have different social media handles. They have completely different audiences. So we would be in situations where we'd be at a golf show in Sacramento with polo shirts, golf hat on, pitching Golf Aid, go to San Francisco, do a fire show, and got our Burning Man gear on, pitching Party Aid, and then for a CrossFit competition back in Santa Cruz with our Lululemon on and Reeboks doing Fit Aid. It was a lot to handle. It's 3 different total audiences and distractions and outfits and everything. So I think the first thing that was very impactful was narrowing it down, and as Dean Jackson would say, choose a single target market was essential. So getting very clear and very focused. And for us, even though Golf Aid was making the majority of our revenue at the time, selling direct to golf courses, we saw our sell-in to the CrossFit channel and these CrossFit gyms, and our volume, our velocities were much greater than at golf courses. So we literally took our limited resources and time and put it all in the CrossFit channel. And we used direct marketing. We had no sales reps. So we went old school with the old school marketers out there. We used direct marketing and irresistible offers. We had a great product, and we said, hey, buy 10 cases of Fit Aid and we'll give you a free Fit Aid refrigerator for your gym. And people started taking us up on that. I remember one month we got 30 new gyms in a month. It was huge. We used to ring the bell in the office every time we got a new gym. Then we got 75, then we got 100, then we got 200, then we got 250, and we were just on this roll for a while, like, wow, we got something here. That's when we knew we had a real business.
So when you say direct marketing, traditional marketing, do you mean you literally would go and knock on the door and say, hey, I want to hook you up with some badass LifeAid?
No. Again, we had no sales reps. So what we would do is we would scrub the internet and pull names and addresses of gyms and get a 4-pack of our product, package it up with a sales letter that I wrote, and send and just force product on them. Like, here, drink this ice cold and here's the offer, and then do some follow-ups via email. And we started closing quite a few gyms. Our average close rate was about 15% of all the gyms that we sent product to ended up becoming an accounts. And then we kept dripping on them over the next 12 months if they didn't convert. And over 12 months, we convert 50% of those over a period of time. So, basically it was a strong funnel. It cost us, say like $50 all in, and those gyms were returning $2,500 a year each in revenue.
So at what point, and maybe you didn't, but at what point did you start to utilize other channels like salespeople, more online marketing, funnels, ads? Like, did you make that transition? And if so, when did you and how did you?
Yeah, we started digital marketing as well as soon as we had the cash flow to do it, and running targeted Facebook ads, Instagram ads, which also used to pull very well. Our first salesman we recruited from Vita Coco. A good friend of mine I've known since junior high, just ran into him randomly on a plane ride, and he was going to the same conference that I was. We hadn't really kept in touch over the years, and he was working at Vita Coco. So we snagged a couple of the directors from Vita Coco because we were just starting to get outreach from traditional retailers like Whole Foods and H-E-B down in Texas started bringing us in, and we knew nothing about the retail landscape. So it was important to get a couple of people that knew what they were doing to help assist us with that rollout.
So I'm really interested in hearing, like, how big have you grown it, right? And maybe you could take a few minutes to brag on yourself and your team a little bit. Like, what are some of the key accomplishments, and like, how high up the mountain have you climbed so far?
That's a good question. I'd say we're about halfway up the mountain. I mean, things are just, we have momentum on our side right now. So just, from where we started at 0 to where we're at today, we're over $80 million company. We've got 70 employees. We're sold in 20 countries. We've rolled out in just about every major retailer in the United States, or are in the process of rolling out. So yeah, I mean, we're off to the races. We're rocking and rolling. It's been a lot of steps and stages to get there. I mean, one thing that I'm very big on with our team is using the ATM analogy. So we've all been to the ATM machine to pull money out, right? And I believe that there is a universal ATM. And as long as we continue to follow the ATM principles, that it will continually provide for us. The A being alignment. Alignment, first off starts with ourself, individual alignment. Like, what are you doing when no one else is looking? Is there a difference between your public persona and your private persona? So I think everyone needs to first look in the mirror and say, well, what if everything I did showed up on the front page of the New York Times? Would I be okay with that? It's kind of that self-check as far as, your vices, discipline, et cetera, et cetera. Alignment with your business partner is essential. I mean, we had a lot of rough moments in the early going, especially when it came to dividing out the business and who would have ultimate responsibility for what. Alignment with my spouse or your significant other. I mean, it would be impossible to do what we've done without their full backing and support. Alignment with my friends. I mean, where I was at, 8 years ago, and the people I was hanging out with are a little bit different than they are today, because sometimes you have friends that they've been with you a long time, but they're not a positive force in your life. They either have destructive behaviors, or their attitude, or they're coming from a scarcity mindset, what have you, but that's weighing you down, right? And then obviously alignment with our team. As the team continues to grow, making sure we're all firing on all cylinders and have clear objectives. And so we have systems in place that rotate around every quarter to keep everybody very much incentivized in alignment. The T is trajectory. I find especially with younger generation that the concern is more over velocity, like how fast this thing's happening for me, versus what direction am I going. I've witnessed firsthand for a couple friends that were making bad decisions. They weren't in good personal alignment. They had a negative trajectory, and then they had Aunt Martha died and left them some big money. And what happens? They just crash and burn even faster. So really focusing and understanding that if I am hyper-focused on execution, if I am continuing to do the right things because it's the right thing to do, if I'm hustling even when nobody's watching me, I'm going to be on a positive trajectory. I don't care if you're washing dishes, okay? People will take notice. You've got to be so hyper-focused on getting shit done and working on such a high level that people take notice, and you will progress. The velocities will come. You will get a break. You will get a promotion. You will get quote unquote lucky, right? but focus on trajectory first, velocity will come. And then the M is momentum. You know, any business owner that's been around the block a couple times will tell you momentum is precious. Momentum is so much easier to maintain than it is to create. You know, it's like the coefficient of friction, right? It's much more difficult to push something in motion from it being at a standstill than it is to keep it in motion. Well, in business is the same way. You've got momentum. Do not take your eye off the ball. Continue to press. Do all the little things. You know, go above and beyond. Make sure you're treating all your customers right. You know, dealing with bad reviews, making great products and services, treating your team right, looking at people from a very holistic perspective. There is no work life and home life. There's just life, right? There's just life. So doing all the things that got you the momentum, you've got to keep doing them to maintain. And I see too many people, they, you know, take things for granted, and then they lose momentum, and they're looking around like, oh shit, what just happened? I lost momentum. And then when you lose momentum, you lose sales, you lose customers, you know, you lose revenue, it all starts to go to shit. So that's the ATM.
Dude, that was huge. That was amazing. And I want to highly encourage everybody who's watching, listening, to go back and listen to that a couple times, because Aaron just dropped some serious value bombs on us. And I'm so very grateful to have been able to hear that. So thank you for sharing that. How did you develop that philosophy? Like, where did that come from?
Last year I was getting interviewed by Joe DeSena, the founder of Spartan Race, and I had gone to bed kind of thinking, you know, what am I going to say here? I mean, I never want to create an infomercial during an interview. I want to provide as much value as I can. And I literally just woke up in the morning. I thought ATM. I was walking by an ATM machine at Squaw Valley up in Lake Tahoe. I'm like, ATM alignment, because I had been thinking like, gosh, you know, the team's in great alignment right now, and just in talking with young entrepreneurs, I'm like, trajectory. Don't worry about, you know, the momentum, trajectory, and just this whole momentum that I felt, you know, was starting to surge. And I was like, ATM, there it is, alignment, trajectory, momentum. And so I just that was it. It's been, you know, since October of last year that concept has really hit me.
In building out this incredible business, I mean, it seems like it's almost like a movement now to you know, just better yourself and better your life, and better your health. What would you say have been the skills or the values that have been most crucial? Whoops, just hit the mic. Have been most crucial for you in order to push your organization to the incredible heights that you've pushed it to?
Yeah, there's we know what we know, you know, we know what we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know, right? Kind of coming from like a landmark perspective. So being aware of that, understanding that your skill set where you're at today is what got you here, but is not what will carry yourself forward. So I am constantly looking to improve my personal skill set, whether that's from leadership, communication, sales, marketing. I'm constantly aware and paying attention of other businesses. When I'm looking at my own behavior patterns, like, why did I pick up that marketing piece? Why did I grab for this in the grocery store? Why am I yelping so positively about this restaurant? Like, if you start paying attention to life and your own decisions and what's driving your decisions, then I think a great skill set to have is, how do I take that and how do I apply it to my own business or my own situation? And you know, coming back to constantly sharpening the saw and really seeking to understand people first, and being very empathetic around that. And so, you know, it's a combination of things. It's you have to put out great products and services. You know, I think you know, looking at people very holistically and not, you know, grinding them into the ground, but, you know, this is life and let's all live it and have a good time doing it together. Really being united around a vision of you know, getting consumers off these high sugar, high caffeine, sports and energy drinks. I mean, the big beverage companies have gotten a free pass for 100 years, poisoning our children with sugar water, 100 years. So, we're all driven, like we're changing people's trajectory. We're changing their health trajectory, right? You can go work out 8 days a week, but if you're drinking 2 big gulps a day, trust me, it's going to end poorly. So, changing people's trajectory is important. And then having everyone aligned around that. So we know we all have to up level our game, and keeping that attitude, keeping sharp and looking for continual improvement, like that Kaizen approach, continuous improvement, continuous education, is the attitude that we all have around here.
When you're looking for sources of that education, are you looking for books, courses, mentors, masterminds? Like, where do you go to find that information? And how do you qualify it and vet it to make sure that it is the right information for you?
Yeah, good question. When I first started, I was absorbing everything. I didn't listen to the radio for 3 years. I listened to 120 episodes of I Love Marketing in like 2 months. I mean, I was just absorbing everything. I was reading 50 books a year. I was listening to every podcast possible. Now just the volume of content is too much. So I very much curate it. Masterminds as well. I joined some of the highest level masterminds, and we're hanging out with people that were way, way, way above me. Mentors are huge. I think, looking for a mentor, you need to find someone who has achieved where you are trying to go. And those change, once you get to their level, then you kind of look for another mentor to bring you to the next level. And same thing with masterminds. But curating the content, the mentor, the mastermind to the next step in your evolution is very important, because there's just too much out there. So you kind of put lots of different poles in lots of different ponds and kind of see what fish you catch and what resonates, and then kind of ride that to a point until it's kind of fished out, and then you move on to the next one. So that's the approach I've taken, and now I'm very curated. Like, okay, where are we at? What do we need to be learning here? And what kind of content should I be exposing, or people should I be exposing myself to?
Do you ever feel like when you're consuming other people's content that is almost bringing you away from what naturally makes you awesome? Like, because everybody has their own style, their own unique flavor. And when they're creating the content, they're creating from their space. So
Yep.
do you ever feel like maybe I shouldn't consume, maybe I should more create, and I can learn more about myself through creating? I mean, do you think about stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, some people are just constant consumers and they don't do anything with it, right? I mean, sometimes you'll see the same person at every seminar and has read every book, but has never done anything. So the big part of it is taking the content and taking action on it. I mean, without action, it's a moot point to be doing any of this stuff, right? So hopefully your listeners are getting some action items that they can take action on today, not tomorrow, not next week, but today. But as far as, do I shield myself from certain things? Like, look, I've met Gary Vee a couple of times. A lot of people follow him on Instagram. I don't have camera crews following me around and, doing that whole thing. Like, it's just not, my style. He's got his style. But what I have learned is when he gets a piece of content, he can chop that piece of content up 15 different ways and have it for 15 different platforms without having to create 15 pieces of content. That's an invaluable lesson, right? So I don't have to be Gary Vee, but I can learn a lot from Gary Vee. So I just like with any mentor or any book or anything, it's not that you're taking it as gospel and doing it verbatim. You're figuring out what works within your framework.
So we've talked a lot about where you've come from and how you've gotten to where you are now. But what do you see as the future that you would like to create?
Well, for myself, I plan on living the 5-5-2. We call it. My buddy Dave Schmidt has coined this 5-5-2. It's 5 months in Santa Cruz, up in the mountains. I live off the grid, so no power. I got my own well, off the grid, rugged living up in Santa Cruz Mountains. 5 months probably in Hawaii, in Kauai. I love Kauai, and 2 months traveling. Like, that is really appealing to me. I love working with entrepreneurs. I love, doing things like this and podcasting and speaking engagements and helping people, kind of find their path. So I find a lot of appeal with that. As far as the business is concerned, I mean, we'll continue to be heads down focused on execution. I mean, that's what it's all about. We know that every, person we get to get off their energy drink, get off their sports drink and onto one of our products, we're permanently affecting their health trajectory, like I said. So we're very excited about that, and we'll continue to do that until, LifeAid, FitAid, FocusAid are all household names.
When you look back on the past, 20, 30 years, what stands out to you in your personal life as some of the highlights on your journey?
Oh man, some of the highlights. Well, we talked about, growing up being the oldest of seven. That was an experience from my younger days. A lot of people don't know in 2009, I've lost all of my money twice in my life. I've been literally zeroed out. Once was in the .com crash. I had friends making money doing day trading and that kind of thing. So I'm smarter than them, or as smart I could do that. And I got wiped out. It wasn't a ton of money, but it was all I had at the time, like 15 grand or something I had saved up. The second time in 2009, I had a successful practice, making a ton of income, and everybody around me, that was even minimum wage guys were millionaires on the housing boom. And so I got into the housing game in 2007, and in 2009 I had 50 grand a month coming in and 70 plus going out, and it bankrupted me. And that was a turning point in my life. I'm in my early 30s. I had good income, great practice, all this stuff going for me, and yet I'm staring in the mirror going, you just lost everything. Like how did you possibly get yourself in this situation? I wasn't upset at the world. I wasn't mad at Enron or the banks or anybody. I was just really upset with myself. Like, what a fucking idiot. I was really disappointed. It was a really low point. I mean, it was humiliating, and, just like being a 130 pound, 5'3", senior in high school, I think humility is underrated, and especially, go-getter entrepreneurs need that humility to keep things in perspective, and it changed my trajectory in a positive way. I realized that I don't have a great history with money, so I'm much smarter with it. I seek advice. My business partner is a financial planner, not getting over leveraged on things, paying off my bills, when I have the funds available, staying debt free. Like, there's lessons. I lived, so I'll tell a quick story. I sold my practice when LifeAid, it didn't even really have traction, but it had just a little bit of traction where we thought, hey, we got something here. We need to really focus, because it's impossible as a business owner to have two things going and have them both be successful. I mean, you really got to focus. So sold my practice, got a pretty good decent sale price, and I wasn't pulling any income from LifeAid. And we had just bought this property off the grid in Santa Cruz, and I had just bought a trailer. So I was living in a 400 square foot trailer, no PG&E, we dug a well, so we had water, no heat, no nothing. Okay, had 2 kids, 400 square feet, literally boiling water on the stove and pouring it into the bathtub for baths and eating out of an ice chest. Well, just within a few months, the guy who purchased my practice took my golden goose that I had given him and killed it, literally killed it. And he went under and just stopped paying me, And I couldn't really go back to that because I was already going down the LifeAid path, and we weren't pulling any income from LifeAid. So whatever little savings I had went away pretty quickly. And I learned to live off of $1,000 a month for several months. And then, finally we got a little more traction. We got to raise to $3,000 a month. but living in literally the most expensive place in the entire world here in the Silicon Valley, and on that thin of an income and eating um, macaroni and cheese with a can of tuna, which for anyone who's broke out there, that's like $1.50 meal. So, and it actually tastes pretty good. And doing that multiple nights a week, you get humbled. You realize like, wow, I had it so good, and now it's really thin and really tight, and I'm working my ass off and just having like emotional breakdowns. Like, wow, I'm really put my family in this situation, but it was all part of the journey. It was all necessary for us to have the appreciation that we do today. The appreciation for how far we've come, the appreciation for the team, the appreciation for our customers and consumers out there, just for everything, appreciation for life. I always was like, oh, if we only sell 1 million cans, everything will be all right. Oh, and then it was, if we only sold 10 million cans, it would be all right. And no, that's bullshit. There is no end of the rainbow. There is no end of the rainbow. It doesn't exist. So you have to learn to enjoy the ride. And I always thought that that was just what people that have already, made it. I call them made men. Once you're a made man, oh yeah, you're a made man. It's easy to say enjoy the ride. You're not grinding it out anymore. But there's just life. You're not guaranteed tomorrow. Yesterday's already happened. It's just life. So enjoy it, appreciate things, calm the little demons on our shoulder that are always there trying to bring us back down, and keep moving forward.
Man, that was seriously powerful. So again, thank you for sharing that. And man, I'm getting inspired just hearing you tell that story. So one of the bedrocks of this show is connection, and I'm fascinated by connection. And it seems like one perspective is that you guys are almost and gals are almost the connection between health conscious or a healthy lifestyle and your consumer, right? Like you're connecting those two. And I'm sure there are many other ways you could look at it, but I'm really interested in learning your philosophy on building deep, meaningful, and genuine connection with another human being.
Yeah, so I've been teaching this concept to our team here at LifeAid, and everyone knows it by heart now. And it's funny because I had a small stint working for the government right out of college, and the only positive thing about that experience was they sent me to a Stephen Covey course. So I did a 3-day Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People certification. Well, fast forward 20 years, here I am, right? And I have this idea of making like everyone's has an emotional bank account within them, and this idea of making emotional deposits versus withdrawals. Like in our business, FedEx drops things get damaged, things get lost. Once in a while we make a mistake, not very often, but those are emotional withdrawals. So the whole point is make emotional deposits, build up that bank account. So if and when there is a withdrawal, it's okay because you got a positive account balance, right? Well, we just read the 7 Habits. We read one book a quarter with my customer service team, and we finished the 7 Habits. And there he's talking about emotional deposits and withdrawals. I'm like, I must have had that stored somewhere in the back of my brain for 20 years dormant, and it just came out. And then I read that, I started laughing to myself when I was at home reading it, like, oh my God, I thought I had an original idea here, but obviously it wasn't. Stephen had that covered a long time ago. But 100%, it's all about connection, right? It's all about adding value, as much value as you can, and the universe always comes back in spades. So knowing that, and it's very difficult because if you come up from a scarcity mindset, it's the exact opposite. It's like hoarding and how much can I keep for myself, and whatever I have might not be there tomorrow. So I got to hold on to it. And really working on yourself and saying, no, it's okay. Give, add value, give away your best stuff, That's why I'm always an open book. People ask, "Oh, what are you doing? What work?" Well, I'm not hoarding any trade secrets. Like, anyone can ask me anything. I'll tell you whatever you want to know, right? Because the more value I can add, the more I know the universe will provide.
When do you feel most connected to another person? Like, how could somebody else truly build a real connection with you?
That's a good question, because I've always been, um, a little bit more reserved, a thicker skin, a little more stoic, and but I hold my friends very dear and tight. Once they get through, my armor. I don't know where that comes from. I think if I really self-reflect, going back to those junior high and high school days when I was this, little scrawny kid, and very timid and very emotional. I was a very emotional kid, very emotional. Um, that I try to fight that, right? I don't want to get emotional in front of people. And so I create this armor around me. And sometimes it's difficult to break through. So I just don't have a good answer to that. It just takes time, for me personally. I treat people, with respect, and always assume, um, the best, first. And I very much try not to be, judgmental. Um, so that's just come with time and maturity. But kind of breaking through to me just takes a little bit of time to have that trust and relationship.
What's your greatest theory?
My greatest theory. Hmm. I think that, just kind of as a concept or a philosophy, I don't know if it's a theory, but I think we need to think, more about our mortality, and not less. So much of today is around, how do I cheat death? I think we need to think, like, how many people show up at our funeral? For me, like, that is the litmus test of, how much, value you've created in the world, how much love you've put out in the world, like how many people show up at your funeral. So just as a thought experiment, I think that's a good one to contemplate for a few minutes.
So, Aaron, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It has truly been a pleasure to share this time with you, and I'm very appreciative of everything that you've shared. I just have two more quick questions for you, then we'll wrap it on up. Is there anything about yourself that you think is an important part of who you are that we didn't talk about today? In other words, what did I miss?
I'd say one, you touched on kind of pivotal moments in life before. I didn't mention one, two things that I'll mention now that I think were essential in my current journey. Number one, having a morning routine has been a life changer. I do the same thing every morning. Very, very quickly, I do Wim Hof breathing, which you can check out, a cold plunge in the shower, the 5-minute journal, appreciation journal, intention setting. I take, my supplements. I eat a keto breakfast. I do a morning prayer ritual, with my son. And I listen to an audiobook, and I do Wim Hof again at the ocean, and do a little bit of yoga stretching. Like, having a morning routine is essential. The second thing that really changed my trajectory, and this is, I think, will resonate with a lot of entrepreneurs out there, because entrepreneurs tend to be a little ADD. Always, always, always carry around one of these. This is a notebook, okay, with a pen, always. Because I'll tell you what, I have probably 15 of these now, full, stacked up, and pages. You'll have great ideas all the time, or you make observations on something you want to follow up on. If you don't write it down, like, I would wake up, in the middle of the night, I'd have a wake up, great idea. Oh my gosh, it's gonna crush it. I can't wait till tomorrow. Wake up 3 hours later and totally forget. I'll remember I had a great idea. I just don't remember what it was. So write all your shit down. Even if most of it's garbage, it doesn't matter. Review it once a week, go through, and there'll be some gems in there, and take massive action when you find those gems.
So, Aaron, again, I want to thank you so much. Last question for you today. I'm 24. I have a couple businesses, but this show is, and I say this all the time, but this show is absolutely my greatest passion. What question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
What question should you be asking me? Put me on the spot with that one. I think that, especially for your generation, certain things have come fairly easy. Now, I'm not saying you're not working hard and haven't created a great platform. You have. I've checked it out. It's very impressive. But you have Instagram stars now that are, you know, making millions of dollars and this and that. I would be very conscious of, there will always be rainy days, always, in life and in business. And when things come too rapidly, I'll talk about the trajectory momentum, when you get velocity, if you get too much velocity early on without putting in the work and having the trials and tribulations, I just feel like that's a setup for something. Okay. And sometimes the crashes can be very difficult and hard. So just be money conscious, you know, recognize that you don't know what you don't know. And just by virtue of age and life experiences, you don't know a lot. Okay. You don't know a lot. So value the times. I mean, my father-in-law was a Holocaust survivor. Was a PhD. He was the first person to prescribe hallucinogens in Santa Cruz County for therapy. Like all of this stuff. But when I met him, and he's passed now, when I met him in my 20s, I thought I had everything figured out. He would tell me stuff, and you know, a lot of times I would discount his advice and stuff. I'm such an idiot. I just kick myself in the butt. Like that wealth of knowledge and experience, and like, so anytime that you meet somebody who is your elder, that doesn't mean they have it all figured out. We never have it all figured out, but there's wisdom in with time on this planet, and so just make sure that you're staying open, that you are asking the right questions, that you are humble, realize that you don't have it all figured out, and realize that rainy days will come. And you know, when they do come and you're expecting that, when you kind of have prepared for it, it's not too bad. You just roll with the punches. But you know, there's high highs and low lows in entrepreneurship, and but you got to just realize at the end of the day, it always works out. It always works out.
Aaron, thank you, man. I know I keep saying it, but I truly do mean it. You know, I'm very grateful that you come on the show and share all that you have. And to everybody who's listening, I want to thank y'all for watching, for listening, for supporting the show, for sticking with us all the way till the end. You guys rock. Y'all are the best. So I love you guys. You wanna wrap us up, Aaron?
Cool, everybody. Continue to just crush it, do good work, stay focused, hyper-focused on execution, provide as much value as you possibly can. And if you have any questions about this or want to continue the conversation, just hit me up on social. It's just my name, Aaron Hinde, on Instagram's where we spend most of our time. And we'll give everybody too, if they're interested in any of the products, 25% off their first order. Just use Project Egg, all caps, at checkout.
Sweet. Thank you again, man. Very appreciative of that. Let's change the world, everybody. See y'all in the next episode.
Later.